Reports on Saturday early morning in the Africa country of Tanzania indicated that thousands of youths in the country have continued mass protest in the Tanzania capital city of Dodoma, also simultaneously in the country's former capital city of Dar es Salaam, which remains the country's largest city and its main economic hub, while streets in Mwanza, Mbeya, and Arusha have remained occupied by the aggrieved youths who the major opposition political party, Chadema, claimed have been shot at, and over 700 of them have been killed by security operatives since the violent protest erupted in the country on Wednesday over the 2025 presidential election allegedly marred by corrupt practices. But the Tanzania Foreign Ministry dismissed the claim, saying the Tanzania government is not aware of any death recorded or any of the protesters killed, adding, the government has not used excessive force on the protesters. The United Nations UN Human Rights Office stated on Friday that it has a credible report of at least 10 deaths recorded as a result of killing of protesters by the Tanzania security forces, and information from border communities between Tanzania and Kenya indicated that, on Thursday, October 30th, in the afternoon, chaos broke out at the Namanga border checkpoint as Kenyan and Tanzanian youth threw stones at Tanzanian police, and the police responded with live ammunition and tear gas canisters, leading to a casualty of 2 people shot dead by police and 2 others, including a Kenyan police officer, were seriously injured. While violent protest continued across major cities in Tanzania, President Samia Suluhu Hassan of Chama Mapinduzi, CCM political party was declared winner, and the electoral body announced on Saturday early morning that the president secured a re-election figure of 97.66% of the votes, which represents 31,913,866 ballots. In the October 29, 2025 controversial presidential election boycotted by the country's main opposition political party, Chadema, which the Chadema political party did by not signing the Electoral Code of Conduct after the set deadline, and the Tanzania electoral body subsequently banned the Chadema political party from participating in the general election and all by-elections till 2030, and this is in addition to the disqualifications of challengers like Tundu Lissu of Chadema political party, the main opposition leader who remains detained since April 2025, and other serious challenger, Luhaga Mpina of ACT Wazalendo, was disqualified on technicalities. The final result showed Hassan 97.1 and 66% of the vote, dominating every constituency, the Electoral Commission announced on state television. A quick swearing-in ceremony would take place on Saturday, the state TV said. On Friday there were reports that the Tanzanian president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, left her private residence in Zanzibar in a military chopper, and some local media reported on Saturday morning that her whereabouts had remained unknown. Demonstrations erupted on Wednesday in Dar es Salaam, a city of more than 7 million people, after Kingsley Kanunta Kanu, the younger brother to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, in an ex-post as reshared by barrister Aloy Ejimakor, the coordinating lawyer for the detained Biafra Republic agitation leader. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has given reasons why his elder brother had continued to defend himself on the ground of no case submission, saying, the federal government of Nigeria, who made the accusations and filed the terrorism charges against the Biafra leader, has not been able to pinpoint any aspect of the Nigeria laws that should warrant his brother, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, to enter defense, citing several court rulings that invalidated the federal government accusations against the detained Biafra leader. This, Kingsley Kanunta Kanu stated in reaction to the commentary of Dr. Sam Amadi, published on This Day newspaper, after the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, on Monday, abandoned his earlier plan to call witnesses in his ongoing trial before the Federal High Court in Abuja. Nnamdi Kanu, who is being prosecuted on 7 counts of terrorism charges brought against him by the federal government, last Friday, had prayed the court for an adjournment after informing the trial judge, Justice James Omotosho, that his former legal team, led by a former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Chief Kanu Agabi, San, had yet to release his case file to him. Though, Nnamdi Kanu had earlier expressed his readiness to open his defense in a written application to the court, in which he indicated his intention to call witnesses and requested the issuance of witness summons, but, at the resumed hearing on Monday, Kanu told the court that upon reviewing the case file, he had concluded that there was no valid charge against him. Nnamdi Kanu argued that since he believed the charges were unlawful and that the prosecution had failed to establish any case, there was no need for him to proceed with his defense. According to Punch newspaper, the trial judge, Justice James Omatosho, directed Kanu to file a written address formally stating his position and to serve the prosecution accordingly. Justice Omatosho further advised the IPOB leader to consult experts in criminal law to understand the possible legal implications of his decision. The judge thereafter adjourned the case to November 4th, 5, and 6 for the adoption of final written addresses, based either on Kanu's position that no case had been established against him or for him to proceed with his defense if he decides otherwise. Kingsley Kanunta Kanu's statement as recirculated by barrister Aloy Ejimakor on Thursday, tagged, Legal Rejoinder, to the misleading commentary by Dr. Sam Amadi, published in This Day of the 30th of October 2025, titled, If I were Kanu, I would not refuse to write a defense, stated as follows below. 1. Introduction. Correcting a misguided narrative. The recent article by Dr. Sam Amadi in This Day at Thisdalev of the 30th of October 2025, suggesting that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu should write a defense instead of claiming he has no case, exemplifies how poorly informed commentary can distort constitutional discourse in Nigeria. While the piece parades itself as legal analysis, it fundamentally misstates the law and fact. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria has issued a revised policy actions over the 2025 presidential pardons he had earlier granted to 175 persons, some of whom were convicted murderers, deadly kidnappers, which included Mariam Sanda, who had spent barely 6 years and 8 months at the Suleja Medium Security Custodial Center after she was convicted and sentenced to death by hanging over the killing of her husband, Bilyaminu Bello in Abuja, who she stabbed 3 times repeatedly. This, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in his earlier presidential pardon granted to the 37-years-old convicted and condemned murderer, Mariam Sanda, had asked her to go home free because of her children, but, following public outcry and condemnation, in the revised version of the presidential pardons signed into law on October 21, 2025 and made available to the public by the presidency on Wednesday, October 29, 2025, President Tinubu commuted the death sentence to 12 years imprisonment, although the presidency never mentioned the total numbers of people granted the presidential pardons, but the list of beneficiaries made available by the presidential spokesperson, Bayo Onanuga, indicated that only 86 persons were granted the presidential pardons, and Mariam Sanda, apparently spelt as Mariam Sunda, was last on the list, and the names of earlier beneficiaries like Kelvin Prosper Oniara were not seen in the revised edition of the list. Maybe the names were omitted due to excessive public outcry that Prosper Kelvin Oniara was a convicted, notorious, high-profile gang leader of a deadly kidnapping group that were widely stated to be responsible for the kidnapping and subsequent killing of a former Anambra State Deputy Governor, Julian Wike, kidnapping of a prominent legal practitioner, Mike Ozekome, on August 24, 2013 along Benin Auchi Road, and during the kidnapping operation, the gunman ambushed and killed 4 police officers including the divisional police officer, DPO of Ahor Division, who led the police team in an attempt to rescue Mike Ozekome. Outside that, the 44-years-old Oniara was also stated to be responsible for the kidnapping of a judge in the Edo State Judiciary, a top female official of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, among other several members of the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, and security agents. And Oniara was also stated to carry out several armed robberies and kidnap operations in Delta, Edo, Rivers and Anambra states, maintaining operational base and detention camps in Wari and Kokori community in Delta State, Ugbakolo community in Benue State, Benin City in Edo State, and Aba in Abia State. That on the 18th of September 2013, Oniara issued a 60-day ultimatum to the federal government of Nigeria to release some of his boys who were arrested by the Department of State Services, DSS, or he would wreak havoc on innocent Nigerian citizens, and, on the 25th of September 2013, a combined security team of the Nigerian Army and DSS operatives arrested Kelvin Prosper Oniara, a convicted notorious terrorist, kidnap kingpin and armed robber, who had been on the wanted list of the security agencies, and human rights lawyer, Barrister Jefferson Uwaharen, has condemned and berated the federal government of Nigeria under the presidency of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for arresting, detaining and remanding to Kuje prison, Barrister Aloy Ejimakor, the lawyer to the detained Biafra Republic agitation leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, after Aloy Ejimakor was seen joining the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest in Abuja on Monday, according to the human rights lawyer, who have remarkable experience in fighting against police extrajudicial killing. One notable exception is that the lawyer enjoys less freedom than others to speak publicly about his or her own cases, but not when it involves solidarity marches and protests for his client. The conducts of lawyers and the limit of their professional duties is the kernel of the alarming accusation by the presidency yesterday against the lawyer of Mr. Nnamdi Kanu and his subsequent arrest by the police for his presence at a scene in Abuja, where protesters were marching peacefully demanding the release of Mr. Kanu. The statement from the presidency and the police action is obviously a culmination of undisguised hostility towards the lawyer for having the temerity to represent a person the government have since prosecuted and convicted in the court of public opinions. Ordinarily, a lawyer's bail application for alleged crime of illegal protest won't be refused. The refusal is concerning and turning a simple matter into a political case of vendetta and persecution. Bayo Onanuga, the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, had on Monday tweeted while the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest was ongoing, that, "I spotted Aloy Ejimakor, one of Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers, among the small group of protesters mobilized in Abuja by Omiyele Sowore. I wonder what Mr. Ejimakor was thinking when he decided to join this shambolic protest. As a lawyer, he should be aware of the principle of sub judice, particularly in relation to the ongoing treason case before the court. The prosecution has concluded its case, and it is now incumbent upon Mr. Ejimakor and the other lawyers to mount a strong defense for Kanu, rather than focusing on preparing a strong case. Mr. Ejimakor has resorted to extra-legal tactics, joining a career anarchist, to influence the process. Meanwhile, few hours ago, the organizer of the protest and the founder of Sahara Reporters News Media, Omiyele Sowore, stated via his social media accounts that, "We have been informed that plans are allegedly in place at Kuje prison to harm Nnamdi Kanu's younger brother, Fineboy, and Aloy Ejimakor, his special counsel, inside Kuje prison by special orders assigned by the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu." Bayo Onanuga in the tweet demanded a snaction against Barrister Aloy Ejimakor for joining the protest, calling for the release of his client, Nnamdi Kanu. Accordingly, Bayo Onanuga said, "I spotted Aloy Ejimakor, one of Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers, among the small group of protesters mobilized in Abuja by Omiyele Sowore. I wonder what Mr. Ejimakor was thinking when he decided to join this shambolic protest. As a lawyer, he should be aware of the principle of sub judice, particularly in relation to the ongoing treason case before the court. The prosecution has concluded its case, and it is now incumbent upon Mr. Nigeria Police Force, NPF, under the leadership of the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Egbetoken, who is currently in the United States, US, attending the International Association of Chiefs of Police, IACP annual conference in Denver, Colorado, USA, alongside other senior police officers, has warned troublemakers to resist the temptation of hijacking the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest slated to hold today across the West Africa country by the organizers and other group of Nigerians to demand the release of the detained Biafra Republic agitation leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Also, the NPF reminded the organizers and the protesters to respect the federal high court order that restricted them from staging the protest in certain areas in Abuja, such areas which included Aso Rock Villa and its environs, the National Assembly Complex, Force Headquarters, the Court of Appeal, Eagle Square and Shehu Shagari Way, while assuring the protesters of protection. The NPF, in a statement issued and made available by the force spokesperson, Benjamin Hundean, indicated that the Nigeria police force reaffirms its unwavering commitment to upholding the rule of law and maintaining public peace in accordance with constitutional provisions. This follows the subsisting order of the Federal High Court, Abuja Division, given on the 17th of October 2025, by Honorable Justice M.G. Umar, in suit number FHC, ABJ, CS, 2202-2025, Federal Republic of Nigeria vs. Omoyele Sowore and 4 others. The order restrains the respondents and any other persons or groups acting under their instruction from staging protests within and around Aso Rock Villa and its environs, the National Assembly Complex, Force Headquarters, the Court of Appeal, Eagle Square and Shehu Shagari Way. In deference to the authority of the court and in line with the constitutional mandate of the police to enforce law and order, the force hereby calls on all groups, whether in support of or opposed to the ongoing agitation for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, to adhere strictly to the provisions of the court order. The directive remains binding and enforceable pending further judicial proceedings. The Nigeria police force recognizes and respects the rights of citizens to peaceful assembly and expression. However, such rights must be exercised responsibly and within the limits of the law, particularly where public safety, national security, and the rights of other citizens are concerned. The court's intervention is therefore a safeguard, not a suppression, of constitutional freedoms. Accordingly, all intending protesters and counter-protest groups are strongly advised to avoid restricted areas and to refrain from any act capable of provoking confrontation or disturbing public order. The force will ensure the free flow of traffic, protection of lives and property, and security of all law-abiding citizens. Any person or group that uses protests as cover to incite violence, carry or use offensive weapons, vandalize public or private property, kidnap, or engage in acts likely to cause loss of life or serious injury will be dealt with decisively. Offenders will be arrested, subjected. Founder of Sahara Reporters News Media and the organizer of the Free Nnamdi Kanu protest, Omoyele Sowore has refuted and debunked the reports circulating in some sections of the media that the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has stopped the upcoming Monday, October 20th mass protest organized to demand the release of the detained Biafra Republic agitation leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, saying, "The media report is false and a calculated attempt to distract members of the public from coming out to join the protest," adding, "Nnamdi Kanu is so sick that the people must come out now to set him free." The sickness as alleged by Omoyele Sowore apparently challenged the medical report issued by the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, who had submitted its panel report before the trial court on Thursday that Nnamdi Kanu is fit to face trial, that the sickness is not life-threatening, but Punch newspaper reporter at the court on Thursday reported that it was the Department of State Services, DSS lawyer, who happened to be one of the parties in the dispute that presented the NMA medical report before the court. We are yet to ascertain the independency, fairness, objectivity, accuracy and transparency of the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, in conducting the medical examination. In a statement on Saturday, Omoyele Sowore said, "The Federal High Court in Abuja has not stopped the proposed Free Nnamdi Kanu protest slated for Monday, October 20th, 2025. Contrary to the misleading claims being circulated by police lawyers and sections of the media, no order was granted restraining citizens from exercising their constitutional right to peaceful assembly." Justice Umar of the Federal High Court declined to issue any ex parte order sought by the police to halt the nationwide protest altogether. What exists is a purported court order, obtained in chambers by lawyers of the police, which has not been served on anyone, asking that protesters not protest at Aso Rock Villa, National Assembly, Eagle Square, and a certain Shehu Shagari Way, the latest false claims designed to confuse the public and discourage participation. The protest date is sacrosanct. The movement is unstoppable. In another statement, Omoyele Sowore said, I was deeply involved in the struggle for the validation of the June 12th election, and I remember vividly how the system operated back then, how they weaponized the judiciary to buy time, to deceive the public, and to justify injustice. They kept saying, Abiola's case is in court, using that as a shield for tyranny, until they eventually killed him a day before his supposed release. It was a well-orchestrated tragedy disguised as legal processes. Today, I see the same script being replayed with Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the same manipulation, the same excuses, fake narrators, fake protesters, the same abuse of process. The language has not changed. Only the victims have. History is repeating itself before our eyes. And just as we fought to expose the truth then, we must do so now, before it's too late. The Nnamdi Kanu I saw in court on October 16th is very ill. We must rescue him before another citizen is sacrificed to the bloodthirsty Nigerian elite club. Punch.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.